On today's episode of Beauty Behind the Brand, we're going to talk about productivity, the control of your time, management, and just making sure you're getting your day-to-day tasks done, weekly, monthly, and yearly goals accomplished. I get a lot of compliments on how much I get done in a day, but I don't do it all by myself. I have strategies in place. I have an amazing team, and we're just organized. And that's something that I feel like is definitely the trend of the year in 2024 is actually time management and getting things done and staying true to the things I want to get done this year. So let's tune into this episode. I've got some key takeaways that you're definitely going to want to hear and some management goals and timeframes that you might want to hit in 2024. This is probably one of my favorite topics, talking about how to control your time, your management, and your productivity. I'm definitely one of those people. I'm pretty impulse with decision making, but I've noticed over the years that sometimes that isn't always the best thing to do. I feel like because I do value time, I think sometimes thinking too much about decisions sometimes is a waste of time, but then at the same time, it's twofold, right? There's times when you're too impulse, let's say hiring someone, for example, when you should be really hiring slow, but firing fast and making those decisions on bringing someone on to your team. When it looks at time management as a whole, especially as an entrepreneur and having multiple different businesses, time management is probably the most kind of draining, but most of the things you need to be most responsible for. And actually time blocking. That's one of the things I've talked about in past episodes is time blocking and really understanding when it's work time versus personal time, which is very tricky, especially with my lifestyle as well as my relationship with work. And even John and our relationship, we both are entrepreneurs and it's really hard for sometimes for us to unplug and turn it off. But this year, that's really been one of my goals, trying to stay true to even the time I'm spending on my phone, my screen time, spending time outside of work with friends and family, and really making sure I'm scheduling those healthy habits in as if it's something like a work meeting or a Zoom call, making sure that's just as important. So some of the points I have written down today, and I feel like that's another thing I've been trying to do when doing podcasting, especially solos, is actually pre-planning what I'm going to talk about and making sure my efficiency when talking to all of you is actually important and you're getting those key takeaways. Every minute is something we should value, and whether that's doom scrolling or even trying to find your favorite podcast or episode, this is definitely one of the topics I have recorded before, but I feel like this is definitely more of a deep dive into this topic. And I have this question a lot on our DMs and even personal conversations I have with entrepreneurs when we're doing meetups or even just like networking. Some of the things that I get asked a lot is like, how do you accomplish so much in a day? And sure, I am a busy person. I like to have my hands in a lot of decision making, the actions of the business, and making sure things are working smoothly. But a lot of people don't realize, like, I have a team behind me and I have kind of outsourced the things that I don't personally maybe enjoy or I'm not as good at. So then I am able to do more of the creative side and the things I truly enjoy about entrepreneurship. And that is what I think is most important when you get to that point in business, when you can really sit back and look, okay, what are the things I love? What are the things I don't love? And making that pros and cons list of why you're in entrepreneurship and what can really bring that business to the next level with the right team. And that's something I've really tuned into, and I've been true to myself, is like, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And let's really spend the money or spend the time on onboarding someone who is good at those things to be able to really dial up that business and bring it to where it needs to be. Now, when we're introducing time management, this is something that you really need to important in, like achieving those goals and those professional goals, making sure, especially too, I don't think people are realizing, like, I'm such like a quarter planner because, like, yes, we have our full year to look ahead. We have each month can be divided, each week can be divided, but I really like working in quarters or even monthly spans of goal setting. Now, when it comes to achieving like your personal goals, I always try to set more, I want to say like weekly goals sometimes for me, because as being an entrepreneur, and I feel like that's kind of become my identity for the past 10 years, is I want to make sure that my brain is automatically programmed for my professional goals. It isn't programmed for my personal goals. And that's where I need to do those personal check-ins, I would say weekly, like I said, because I can get off off the tracks with that. I can be like, oh my gosh, like this week, for example, I did not go to yoga once because my brain was so absorbed in doing some of these campaigns we have going on, our launches. There's just so many things working, but I was like, I feel so frazzled this week. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel like I've done something for myself. Yes, I was eating right. Yes, I was doing those other things that I needed to do. Yes, I went out for my daily walks with Millie, but I didn't actually get to go to my morning yoga class. And that's something I had to reflect back on, is I didn't hit that goal this week, and kind of not beating myself up for it, but taking that accountability that I didn't do that. And then understanding the importance of that, why I really need to go to these classes and why it's important for me to be able to do those. And like I said, I am an entrepreneur through and through. It's like in my blood. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. So it's easier for me to be able to jump on a call or do a podcast recording or go into the spa if I have to have a meeting or something than actually actively doing something for myself. And that's what I'm trying to do this year, is really program my brain to be able to have that balance and the wellness that I personally need to be a better leader, a better soon-to-be wife, a better mom to Millie. Like there's so many different things that I need to do to fill my cup in order to be a better person for others. Now, exploring those common challenges, like that's something that I realized was I was not setting myself up for success to be able to handle the challenge of, getting up a little bit earlier to go to my yoga class, or the poor management of being like, oh, I didn't prepare the night before for setting up my yoga clothes, or even having those emails, maybe going through those emails before bed to make sure that they were all accomplished. So I didn't feel that guilt of going to the yoga class in the morning, knowing that those emails were completed and sent out. Now, with that being said, I always talk about trying to create balance, but I am such a checklist person, and making sure that that checklist is completed day after day, and maybe having those like 3 top goals. Sandra Monaco and I and Danny had a conversation about this actually last week on one of our calls, just talking about how important your checklist is. All 3 of us are pen and paper people, and we're all very much the same, which I absolutely love our calls, our meetups, or anytime we get to do a campaign shoot all together. But it's one of the things that I think we're just wired that way. But you look at your list and it becomes so daunting. And I think if you can create the 3 top things that you need to get done, or the 3 things that you really don't enjoy doing, get those done first thing in the morning, making sure that that's getting accomplished. And then you actually have the rest of the day to do the things that you truly need to do. Hey there, it's Nicole Mannion, host of Beauty Behind the Brand. I've got a quick tip for all you hustlers out there. You need to check out Hustle Beauty, high-performance skincare that keeps up with your grind. Their products are no nonsense, just like us boss babes. I can't get enough of their conditioning lip balm, hydrating cleansing cloths. They are perfect for on-the-go touch-ups, keeping you feeling and looking your best. We reached out to Hustle Beauty, and they offered our listeners an exclusive discount, and the promo code is BBTB10 for 10% off your entire order at www.hustlebeauty.com. Again, that's BBTB10 for 10% off your entire order. Simple as hustle hard, glow hard with Hustle Beauty. Now, when it comes to management and the impact on the wellness and the productivity and all the things, that is some of the things I find that are challenging, is I'm not actually creating that mind frame of I need to create balance. And I'm telling you this because I feel like it's relatable for a lot of you. If you're in a startup, if you're just starting your business, or you're kind of busy, let's say you're an entrepreneur, but you're also a mom, and you've got all these things that you feel like you're getting pulled into every which direction. I feel you on so many different levels. I feel like some of my friendships have definitely suffered from that. Relationships with family, even work relationships, to my personal relationships to myself. If something's going on in my personal life, I usually just bury myself in work because I can control that. And I usually have some type of way to actually make myself feel better through work. There's so many faults that we do have as entrepreneurs, but I think the biggest thing is recognizing that and actually being able to change that routine or change that mind frame around it. Now, when it comes to the management part of actually like wasting time in activities that are draining or like hindering productivity, my biggest one would be doom scrolling. I don't know what yours is, but that is definitely mine. And a lot of entrepreneurs I've met with recently have said the exact same thing. Now, I would realize like, oh my gosh, my screen time is terrible. This is not good for my mental health. This is not good for my productivity, saying I'm going to get things done. And I just found like myself not that I'm comparing myself on social media. I feel like sometimes it's very inspiring and I save things because I want to like deep dive more into those topics or things for the podcast. But I've noticed now that we have a social media manager, McKenna has been a huge part of that, is taking that weight off my shoulders of feeling like social media is also part of what I need to do on a day-to-day basis, whether that's posting market research as I'm doing like air quotes here, because I felt like I needed to do social media for the podcast, Muskoka Beauty, the spa, and myself, all three at the same time. Even though we have Danny and McKenna helping with that, I just felt like I still needed to make content. And it just took the fun out of it for me. And I'm sure a lot of you feel the same, especially in the beauty industry. Like, we went to school as estheticians or beauticians or hairdressers or whatever, and we did not go to school for social media management. And that's where I feel a lot of people can be absolutely talented at what they're doing, but they don't feel valued when they aren't posting on social, because people aren't seeing that. Or if they're not busy, they're like, oh, maybe because of my social media isn't as strong. We all know word of mouth is the most important way to advertise, but social media has kind of taken that away of us being in person, doing networking. That's what I've even found when I have an opportunity to go to a social event this year. That was one of my goals, is to actually say yes and attend it. I know things get in the way and I can't attend everything, but even something simple as going to one of John's basketball games, for example. I ended up networking with another osteopath that actually is local to the area, another couple ladies there that also own businesses in town. And then we were able to kind of collab and actually network together as watching a basketball game with our partners. So you just never know where you're going to run into someone. Even right now, I'm in Toronto, and I was at a local coffee shop, and there was a gentleman standing behind me, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's one of my clients' husbands from Muskoka. That's one of our seasonal clients. And I reached out and introduced myself, and yeah, it takes a bit to get out of your comfort zone, but we ended up chatting while we were waiting for our coffees, and we had a great conversation because his wife's also an entrepreneur. We were able to network. I introduced myself, and then he'll probably go back to tell her the same thing that he ran into me. So it's just a way to get yourself out to actually create relationships. And it means so much more to someone that you're actually talking to them versus sending an email or even a phone call. If you know where someone might be at a social event that you actually want to connect with, get dressed up, spend the day out, and actually be able to network with others. And being around like-minded people is huge. And don't ever think that it's hard. That's the hardest thing to get wrapped around in your head. Like, even when we do these campaign shoots, I get so worked up and anxious, and oh my gosh, what happens if this happens? Or that, like, even stressing about parking. Like, I stress about all these things as well. And time management, I hate being late for anything. So I'm usually half an hour early for everything because that's just how my brain works. But I too get worried about certain things, or I might say something and then I go home and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I say that? When really it was fine. You're just overthinking. And that something is getting out of your own way and really realizing that you're you, and that's what makes you special. And that's why people want to work with you or collaborate with you or network with you. We've noticed that a lot, even with the podcast, is we have a lot of agencies reaching out to us now that have heard our podcast, or the other guests have shared it on their socials, and they're now wanting to be on the podcast, which I'm like, my podcast? Seriously? Like, the following and the network we're building is like I don't know, just such a passion project for me, and I enjoy it so much. But it's creating such a great way to create those networks and really market ourselves as beauty professionals and in the beauty industry. And there's such a way to make sure that you're focused and the productivity is there behind these projects. That's something that McKenna's really helped us with as well, is making it that I can batch film or batch content together in a day. for a lot of you who are listening, you might think that we're recording a lot of these on like an every week basis. A lot of the time, to be honest, is we batch content. So some of our first episodes that we had for this season, we actually had 3 of our guests recorded in the same day. So I had our pre-launch day, which was the beginning of March, but we actually had a lot of the episodes pre-recorded in February because I wanted to be able to really prioritize our guests' time, knowing that sometimes things happen, which we've learned season after season, that if you are doing each week a specific guest and things happen, people get sick, or even for myself, I've had it where I've literally had no voice and I'm not able to record and had to cancel on people. And there's times where things happen. It's real life, but being able to actually have that flexibility with our guests, giving our Calendarly link to them by email, they have the flexibility to book the times that work best for them. And then we're able to jump on those calls, and I have the availability in my schedule. I know for a fact I usually record Wednesday, Thursdays, or Fridays, or sometimes it works out that I record every day in that week. Then we have that much content ready to go. Sometimes there's pros and cons to pre-recording. Things of like relevancy, I feel like sometimes when something really exciting's happened, but I can't be like too vocal about it specifically because we won't be recording, or we'll be recording it now, but we won't be actually publishing that episode until months in advance. But if there's topics or guests that you would like on, let us know, because I absolutely love hearing the feedback, and I also love hearing the topics. And being like with productivity, that's another thing, is we can actually kind of sink in some of those solo episodes that people might want to hear earlier on, especially in the season, right? We are earlier in the season of like 2024. So I do like to have like some of those pre-recorded episodes that are more relevant then. This is why I do not make notes when I'm recording, because I go on these tangents and then I realize like, oh my gosh, I haven't even gone on to the second point of our productivity podcast. Anywho, that was talking about wasting basically other people's time and making sure that you're making it flexible for them, making room if there is things that may come up, kind of giving yourself that buffer within your schedule and or clients. Even when we do our campaign shoots, Danny's amazing. She is like she is like an amazing organizer, even for me with my tasks list, with her task list, with when we do campaign shoots, really having that director hat on and figuring out the things to make sure that we aren't running late, putting buffers, being realistic. Now that we've done shoots a couple times now, she knows basically that flex time that we need for outfit changes or switching content, having her shot list, all the things. It just makes things a lot easier. And it makes me think about life in that way too. And not having those clients back to back or those calls back to back, making sure you have time for lunch, making sure you have time to drink water or go to the washroom, all the things. So really make sure that you're looking at your schedule that way. And then let's talk about strategies and effective time management. So basically the same thing. We're going to explore some of like the metrics and the priorities of that high value task time. So if you're more of a morning person, make sure you're throwing some of those heavier tasks there. If you're more, John and I are so funny because we work completely opposite, where I rather get it done in the morning. I rather do all the things I need to do then. And then later in the evening, I can relax. I can do my activities like I like to do. It's like my reward is how I think about it. For him, he feels more productive because the market, for example, is quiet. He's able to focus on some of the admin tasks he needs to do. I feel like that sometimes on weekends, to be honest. I love like on Saturday mornings, a lot of the time we'll drink our coffee and just have like a couple hours to ourselves in our office and actually be able to get through some of the tasks we need to get done in the week. But if you are more of a morning person or an evening person, make sure you're kind of time blocking that time that makes the most sense for you. And even when we're talking about time blocking, making sure that you're maximizing that productivity. I don't personally have it, but I feel like a lot of the people I follow on YouTube that talk about time management and the skills behind it, they have those clocks that you can like move back and forth. They're almost like a cube. You can order them on Amazon, I believe. And it's great that way because you can actually monitor like 20-minute blocks. You can set a timer on your phone, but sometimes I just try to avoid picking up my phone at all costs. But that's a great thing to use. I also follow, I think she's Australian, a girl on YouTube. I'll put her link below here, but it's Muchelleb, so Mucheleb. I absolutely love her. She just talks about so many different ways our brains work and how we prioritize time, how procrastination, that is one of her top topics too. But she does like a deep dive in a lot of her videos about the actual science to why we do these things or why we don't want to do these things. And even if you have ADHD, that's another thing she talks about too, is how to make our brains more focused, or different music you might have to listen to, or different books she would suggest. It's a great resource. So make sure to check out her YouTube channel. I would love to have her on as a guest as well, because she's just a wealth of knowledge, and she's been doing her YouTube channel a long time. And that's something she talked about too, is really niching down and figuring out what she needed to talk about for her followers and what they were needing. And she's a great resource. So make sure to check her out. Like I said, we'll put her show notes below so you can click her YouTube channel. And then setting SMART goals. So let's discuss, if you don't know what SMART, like measurable goals are. So it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals to stay focused and motivated. So you can set a goal. I mean, we're all good at setting goals, but it's actually keeping ourselves accountable, as well as like relevant and actually time-based of when that's going to happen. So I know in school, we learned a lot about SMART goals. I'm not sure if you would have learned about them in school or not, but do some research about it. When you're thinking about, or even like my mentor, Erin's been great. We talked about that when we did the onboarding, is what are our goals for the year? What are we trying to accomplish? And that's something that we can set out goals, but it's like, what is the specific goal? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it relevant? Is it time-bound goals, right? So making sure that you have hit all those specific acronyms to actually be able to make that happen. So if you want me to do more of an episode on that too, I feel like I have some guests in mind that actually might be really great to talk about goal setting, even money mindset too. I know female entrepreneurs, we don't like to talk about money as much, but that's something that's really measurable. Is if you're like, I want to hit 6 figures this year, or a 7-figure business, how are you going to do that? And how is that going to be measurable and achievable, right? In that time frame of a year, and really kind of almost like separating those into chunks. And each quarter, are you achieving those goals? Or how much more in a day do I need to bring in profit or team members to be able to accomplish that goal? Are you needing wellness hacks that are just easy and seamless? Well, let me tell you about SIIP Broth. This is something I can't live without, and it's really easy as they come in their own individual packages for travel, and or if you're going away for a weekend, just throw a couple in your cooler or in your backpack and you're ready to go. They are great for supporting joints, collagen, protein, healthy gut, containing, like I said, high quality protein too. Helps with elasticity and even electrolytes. And what I love about SIIP is they are actually a husband and wife team out of Toronto, and they are giving us an exclusive discount of 10% off using our promo code Beauty Brand Podcast for 10% off. I have been using it for years. I love it on a cold day. If it's raining out, I love it as just like a little midday pickup, and or even cooking. I love putting it in any chicken noodle soups or any stews that I'm doing, or stir fries. It is absolutely amazing with so many benefits. So remember, Beauty Brand Podcast 10 for 10% off SIIP Bone Broth. Or even maybe less people you're hiring and more type A, those A players that are going to actually make that happen without having an expensive payroll. There's just like so many different things when it comes around money mindset, but that's definitely been one of our topics that has been requested on this podcast. So let me know if that's something you want to kind of dive into a little bit more, because I also do have a guest in mind for that topic as well. So also technology. When you're thinking about productivity and different ways to make things work, productivity sometimes can be a paper and pen, but depending on your team or the size of your goals and tasks, sometimes it's great to actually have systems in place or technology that can help. For me personally, I love ChatGPT because I am not a strong reader or writer. So sometimes, like right now, for example, I'm reading off of ChatGPT talking about time management and productivity just in like my own terms and notes of other podcast episodes. I've kind of done like all of these messages through ChatGPT to be able to make it points that are relevant to me and the podcast and our guests. But for me to actually sit there and brainstorm how many different topics I want to talk about, sometimes it can be very overwhelming, or like I said, my brain goes on these tangents, but it's still giving me the creativity of our Beauty Behind the Brand podcast and our branding. So technology can be great when it's working with you. We have switched all of our back end for both the spa, Muskoka Beauty, and even the podcast. We've switched over everything to Google Chats. We use Google Sheets. We use Google Docs. We literally use Gmail. We use everything that's Google. So one of my spa managers had brought this to me, I think it was probably December when we were switching a lot of our admin over. She said, why don't we do this? Because it makes so much more sense. We were using Slack. We used Monday.com. We used a bunch of different ones. But it was really frustrating because we were then having to forward everything anyways from Google over to these chats. Also videos, we've done all our protocols, all of our services are lined up there. The girls, we have like a general chat. We have a chat about lash orders, things we need to order, wish lists, all the things that we need right there. Danny and I have a great chat when it comes to like all the admin. Within Muskoka Beauty, I'm not kidding, there's like so many categories. I could read them off to you and I think you'd be surprised. Everything from like campaign shoots, content, admin, wholesales, distributors, marketing, boost posts. Like there's just so many things. It's actually crazy. Retail, like the list goes on. And then even with the podcast, we have our spreadsheets for guests, right? We have whether we've contacted them, whether they've been booked, whether they're pending or they're repeat guests, requested guests, all the different things, as well as socials, links, content, or contacts, all the things. So really making sure our Google, like our Calendly link, our Google Chats, scheduling system, all of that makes the most sense. Now for all my spa beauty brands out there, I love Mango Mint. We're actually going to have Daniel on as well. He is, oh my gosh, he is a genius when it comes to the back end of your business and your beauty brand, when it comes to whether that's e-commerce for your spa, linking Shopify, your payment processing, campaigns when it comes to your emails, online booking systems, just all the things. I'm so excited to have him on. We did a discovery call a couple weeks ago. He's just doing great things for the beauty industry. Yes, they are US based, but I think it would be a great topic to have him on, as well as just kind of that more elevated online booking system, especially if you're needing a lot of client forms and files, taking out the guesswork a lot for your guests or your clients as well. But yeah, another thing for tech, I can't live without Mango Mint. Just so many things that I love. Now, overcoming procrastination. This is something that, once again, that YouTube channel is amazing for. Understanding the root cause, right? Like, why am I not taking action? Why am I procrastinating? For me, a lot of the time it's like something that I just don't want to do. Usually it's admin, to be honest, because that is not my strong suit. I hate filling out forms that I need to sign. I don't know why that's such a problem for me. I know how to do it. I just click and download and add my signature. I think it's just like reading and understanding the contract sometimes is very overwhelming for me, since reading and writing is not my strong suit. So sometimes I need like someone else to kind of read it over with me for me to digest it properly. Even just, I don't know, something about admin just is not my thing. So I try to get those things done in the morning. Like I said, with my task list, I try to make it precise and really prioritizing that. And then implementing techniques and making it smaller tasks to be able to do that. So sometimes I'm like, oh, what did I even accomplish today? But what I've been doing is actually writing down on my paper and pen all the little things I've done in a day, whether that's something so simple like respond to an email, I responded to this DM, I did this. And then as entrepreneurs, I know we look at our checklist and like, wow, we didn't accomplish anything today, or we just feel like overwhelmed. But if you really do, even for a week, do this as an exercise, write down even a day. Like, to be honest, I think you'll surprise yourself. Write down all the things that you accomplished within that day, and you'll be surprised. Like I said, every little thing that you have done, even if it was like I said hello and networked with someone at the coffee shop, I did that today, for example. So write down all these specific little things you've done and really give yourself that gratitude and that grace when looking back and giving yourself that pat on the back. Podcast I was listening to, oh my gosh, I cannot even remember which one it was. I'm drawing a blank because I listen to so many podcasts in a day. anyways, they were talking about how as entrepreneurs, I think it was a She's Interesting podcast. And it was the Three Ships founders, and they were chatting about how like as an entrepreneur, you don't give yourself a pat on the back, which is like so sad to think about, right? We're always giving our coworkers, our employees or our team members a pat on the back and giving them that gratitude and really, really like being that cheerleader for them. And sometimes we don't have that person doing that for us, right? And one of my spa managers did that to me last week on one of our calls. After our call, she reached out to me because something was happening with the internet, and our Zoom call ended early, and she just messaged me and said, I really wanted to just ask you how you're doing. How is everything going? And I just had to sit back, and I was like, wow, we have created such a friendship and an understanding of each other. I feel like I'm pretty good at handling stress and overwhelm. A lot of people don't even understand sometimes the things that entrepreneurs have to sacrifice or do in order to run a business. And even for me, like, yeah, I'm planning a wedding. Yeah, I have 3 businesses and brands that we're working with. And I have over like 10 employees really that I'm responsible for. And sometimes I do have to think, how am I doing? That little personal check-in, right? So I really appreciated that Ali reached out and was like, and how are you doing? Are you handling everything okay? Like, we're here if you need anything. And it just took me a moment to actually just like, almost like take a deep breath and was like, wow, I've built such a beautiful team that we're all here for each other. We all support each other. And even for them to actually reach out to me and ask me how I'm doing, I just think that's such an amazing thing when you can create a team and the understanding of each other within that group of women, or anyone really, right? So really check in with yourself. If you don't have that person to give you that pat on the back, make sure you're doing it for you. And even your spouse or maybe one of your best friends, you can just be a little bit more open to them. Maybe just say like, do you mind just doing a little check-in with me, even if it's every month, just to see how I'm doing? Because I try to do that with John as well, where like, how's your week going? How are you feeling? I can usually tell we know each other well enough. If he's really busy or like had a lot going on and like that mental load, I can tell that maybe he isn't present in a relationship currently because he's got something really like busy or overwhelming going on with work that he needs his full focus. And I don't take that personally. I think as us being both entrepreneurs, that's a great part of our relationship, is we do understand each other, and we're not going to take it out on, oh my gosh, like he doesn't love me because he's not paying attention to me. He puts work first, whatever. Like, I am not that. I was probably like the last person that would ever think that of, especially my partner or someone in the position I'm in of entrepreneurship. So really give yourself the grace. Make sure you're creating that safe place for yourself as well as your team members to be able to have that open script. Like, even during our personal assessments, one of the first questions I ask are, how are you doing? Right? For them to open up and be able to have that conversation that they might have even not even checked in with themselves too, right? So yeah, it's just really important. And even your procrastination within that, you might realize like, oh, wow, I'm not doing okay because this personal thing has happened and I've noticed that I've been procrastinating on this part of my work or even in real life, right? So we're all human, things happen, but creating those techniques that can help you get over that procrastination is the most important. So creating habits, that's our next one, which I just talked about really on our daily routines and streamlining workflow and enhancing productivity, and discussing like that self-discipline and maintaining that proper habits and time. So once again, that's like me with yoga. I need to just throw it in my schedule. I need to make sure that it's going to happen. It's in there. I've created these healthy habits. That's something I absolutely love. For example, at Factor, the meal plans that John and I are on, I love them. I am not the best cook. I hate cooking. I hate the cleanup. I hate anything other than eating food. So I've done those. I have realized that my energy level is higher. I feel like I'm getting high enough protein, especially as females. I feel like we sometimes don't eat enough protein. I'm feeling energized. I feel like I'm not wasting time thinking about what we need to eat for dinner. We can just make it. We just basically take the containers, put them onto a dish, throw them in the microwave for 2 minutes, and we've got a wholesome, healthy meal. And that's fuel, right? Food is fuel to you. I love my good protein. I always make sure I throw that in my daily smoothies, whether that's kind of my midday snack or even after a workout. Even in the mornings, depending if I come back from yoga, and I usually try to eat something before yoga, go to yoga, come back, and I usually try to have a protein shake as well, or a smoothie with my protein in it. But yeah, there's just so many little habits in creating kind of that streamline and that flow, but also having flexibility. Like things come up. I know, like even for myself, sometimes like, oh, that wasn't in the schedule today, but like I have this much time, or I'm really bad for is I'm like, oh, I have an appointment at 4:00. Then I feel like I have to like the rest of my day is kind of like me doing things until that appointment when I could have been more productive. I'm sure some of you can relate, but yes, so streamlining your habits and your routines. Now, self-care and balance, once again, long-term productivity. So what are your highlights and what are your goals? So back to really creating, kind of looking back at your goals. I don't know about you, but I always write down my goals in my note app on my phone, whether that's how many books I want to read for the year. Actually, let's look at my notes for the year. Whether that's, the books I want to read for the year. Here, let me see if I can get it up on here. Yeah, so one of my goals was I want to read a book a month, which I've been doing. I want to make sure that I'm prioritizing friendships and relationships. I've definitely not done that. I wanted John and I to go on like one date night a week, which has not really happened, but I feel like we've been more present when we are together, especially after work. So that's basically what that is. Do some type of activity that I enjoy, hobby once a week, which I've been doing, which is my horseback riding. In the summer, that'll also be golf. So making sure I'm doing some type of activity that kind of escapes me a little bit away from life, my phone, work, all the things. I wanted to end up getting our product line FDA and European approved, which we technically are. We're just finishing up some of the packaging for that. And the list goes on. There are more personal ones or more goals that I have, but really go through them and make sure even your weekly and monthly goals that you have for yourself, make sure you're accomplishing those, review them. If you've already accomplished them, which I have with some of our bigger goals, which I was surprised by so early in the year, I wanted to make sure even our podcast guests, some of the ones I had as like my dream list this year, we've already had either the conversation and or we're booked in ready to record those episodes. So do weekly, monthly, and yearly goals. And if you haven't even done it now, go on your phone right now. Let's get you in those note apps, write it down, make it actionable. Even I love Google Calendars as those reminders or those check-ins. Even for me, like something simple is like I have to change like the air filters at work and as well as home. So I like write that in there so I know what's getting done. I don't even have to think about reminding myself. I've just put it in that calendar and I get a reminder about it, right? So sadly, I also have to do that for personal care appointments, like getting my nails done. I feel like I have to either book it in or my laser hair removal. I have to just like book it in and then I know it's scheduled, right? We try to do that with our clients, and why aren't we doing it with ourselves, right? Or I give up my appointments to get a client in as well. So yeah, really just stay true to those habits, those routines, the work-life balance, all the things, because you can really get off track, and making sure that you're reflecting on who you want to be this year and how you're going to accomplish those things. I feel like last year I was playing small in a lot of different kind of categories of my life, and I just did not feel like I was living up to my full potential. And that was one of my goals last year, was to do that, was to really make sure I was playing me, true to me, if that makes sense. And to be honest, I feel like with the recall situation we had last year and just like so many things piling up in admin and us changing literally everything about our business except for our phone number for the spa was like overwhelming. So I felt like the business needed me more than I realized going into 2023. And then now in 2024, I feel like it's like a breath of fresh air that all these hard things that we did last year are now completed and we're able to move forward with those. So really think about that and give yourself the grace. Like I said, like if things in your life just aren't lining up, or it's just not the right time to be able to do these things, or opportunities have come up and it's just not the right time, they may come up again in the future. I just had this conversation with one of my employees. Like if things come up, but it's not the right time, it's okay. It might come up again and you might be able to grab it and you feel better and more secure to grab that opportunity. So that is today's episode, talking about controlling time management, as well as just taking control of your life and making sure that you're being true to yourself, you're accomplishing your goals, and you've got that support team behind you, and you've got some of the technology that can also help with that. Now, like I said, we do get a lot of compliments on how much we get accomplished as a brand, but I can't do that without the team that I have. And this is a huge thank you to them as well for always being there for me, making sure that they have the vision and the drive, and they keep me on track, to be honest. And I just am so grateful for everyone that we have on all three of our brands, and even for you as our listeners, making sure that you're keeping me accountable as well to make sure I'm giving you the feedback and some of my knowledge when running a beauty brand and entrepreneurship. So make sure to like, subscribe, share this on your social feeds for anyone else who needs a little reminder about controlling time management and how to be more productive within their beauty brand. So thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, it's Nicole from Beauty Behind the Brand.